Hey, I'm Bill Beretta, and you're watching a podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Roll it!
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Join Jake and his friends on a journey through pop culture of the past, where they interview professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and so much more. Who will they be chatting with today? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Happy here with us. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm your host, Jake Duffenbach. With me today, my co-host Chris Bixby and Matt Bingo. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing great. Hi everyone. How are you, Jake?
Doing great, Matt. Thank you for asking. And what do we have for today?
Today's guest is a puppeteer and actress. You may know her from series such as The Barbarian and The Troll, Late Night Liars, Happy Time Murders. She was Betty on the Disney Plus series Earth to Ned, but most of you may know her as the co-founder of GLOP, the Glorious Ladies of Puppetry. This may sound familiar to some of you because Donna Kimball mentioned it in her episode. All this and more with our special guest. Please welcome Colleen Smith. Colleen, happy to have you here. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you guys? Sorry, my voice is a little gone. I've been doing Puppet Up shows all weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
No worries at all.
No worries.
We're doing good. Thank you.
Doing
Thank you for asking.
great.
Glad to have you here.
Delighted to
Yes.
have you here. So to kick this off, even though I kind of introduced you a little bit, could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
So my name is Colleen Smith. I am a puppeteer and an actress, all words you said. I came from an improv background. I started at the Groundlings, which is a theater in Los Angeles. It's the home of like Will Ferrell and Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy. And I was brought into puppetry through that. Patrick Bristow, who directs this show called
I love
Puppet Up.
Patrick. Yeah.
I love Patrick. Yeah, he's great.
He and I have been friends for years, and when he started training the puppeteers to improvise, and he introduced the idea of why don't we bring improvisers in and teach them to puppeteer. So that's how I got into it. And yeah, you listed most of my credits. I think the other one that I just ran into someone who was excited about is what am I? And now I can't remember. Oh, The Curious Creations of Christine McConnell, where I played Rose, a psychotic raccoon zombie creature. And I think that's the other thing people get the most jazzed about that I've done.
Nice. So what was your childhood like, and how did you grow up?
Okay. I grew up in Hawaii, which I don't think most people would
Oh wow.
expect. My parents were both in the Army, and my mom got transferred there. So we moved there when I was 5, and I was definitely not into sunshine and outdoor activities. So my childhood was spending a lot of time inside reading and watching TV. I'm a big, like, whenever they made those announcements about the average amount of TV kids were watching, I was watching about 4 times that amount. But I was I don't think I was a nerdy kid. I just was I don't know what word in those, like, that sort of nerd geek world applies to me, but that was my childhood. It was a relatively decent childhood. I mean, I had an angry dad and a sad mom a lot of the time, but I feel like most people have that. So my mom's gonna be so mad. She's like, I wasn't sad.
That's great. So I'm kind of curious. Did you always want to be a puppeteer?
No, I never even thought about it once. I loved the Muppets. My favorite Muppet movie is the Muppet Caper. We watched
I love that
too.
movie.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Such a
Classic.
classic.
Great movie.
and I watched it over and over and over and over again. And I love Labyrinth, but I
Ooh,
never
yeah.
Oh, Labyrinth. Oh, another amazing.
Yeah,
Muppet
those are
film,
my
too. So great.
Underrated in
kind
my
of
opinion.
puppet films. But then it wasn't until I was here in LA, and I was I had just finished doing all of the Groundlings, and I was teaching there. And when Patrick asked if we wanted to join this classes, I was like, oh, I've never thought about that. And that sounds so exciting. It was on the lot, the Charlie Chaplin lot. And so it was like, I'm going to go on this historical lot, and and I walked onto that lot and saw Kermit dressed as Charlie Chaplin, and I saw we do it in the screening room, which is this sort of maroon velvet lined room with gold, and there's posters hung up of all the Muppet movies. And I was like, oh, and that's the first time it occurred to me that this was something I could do. And then it was very, very exciting. But I didn't think about it when I was a kid. It wasn't something I knew. I would watch the credits and I knew who played what voices. And I was very aware of the fact that there were actors playing the characters because I wanted to be an actress from the get. But I didn't think about being a puppeteer.
Interesting.
But I'm not the only one who watches the credits. So, do you remember your first puppeteering job, at least professionally?
I think it was Late Night Liars. I was brought into workshops. They were trying out these characters, and I can't remember if they had already conceived of, they wanted like a Paris Hilton type. And I'd been doing Puppet Up for a while, so they knew I did kind of an ballet girl. And so we improvised that. And then they ended up kind of nixing that character for a little bit and then bringing her back. So by the time we were filming the pilot, I was in it. And that was an intense job because I went from Puppet Up, where you're using all sorts of different puppets, but you're standing and there aren't sets. And I'm a lazy puppeteer and I'm very tall. So if I stand next to the camera and put my hand up like this, I don't have to bend down that much. And it's all kind of light. I love the woodland creatures, so they're light puppets. And I was given this long puppet called Kashmir Ramada. And if you bent your arm in any way, it looked like she was broken. So I went from just like casual puppetry to having to be like bent in half with my arm super straight to keep her normal looking. And because it was a game show, they had to follow game show rules. So because otherwise, there's cheating or something like that. So we had to stay up and we had to follow certain things. So you were just up for really long periods of time. If Donna talked about this, I'm sure she talked about her character who weighed like 40 pounds with like a bowling ball in her hand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, because I remember she said that you kind of mentioned a little bit too, where the puppets on that series, it's just so hard to like even just up and down and all that. Even just how the way it made it, it makes it so difficult than it already is.
Yeah, it was hard. And I learned the trick from that of make it look like your character's leaning on the desk so that you put the arm on the desk and then you can kind of lean your arm on your body that's in it on the desk and you can kind of support yourself during it. So that was my first puppet gig.
Nice.
That's my puppet gig, yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome. So now you had the pleasure of puppeteering with the Muppets on several projects, including the ABC series. What was that like?
It was funny because the first time I did it, I got there and you see the racks and racks of the puppets and it's all the famous characters. And that's the first time I'd been near them. So it was very like, and Bill Beretta came out and he was like assigning everybody the characters. And it's like, ooh, who am I going to get? And half like not wanting to get anybody important, but also like, ooh, maybe I'll get somebody important. And he's just reading the names and he finally gets to me and he's like, Colleen, and Ted Michaels, you're Wayne and Wanda. And it's like, who? And then we got them and they're amazing. And he came over and was like, so their deal is they really love each other. They're very like just in love. They're a happy couple. It's like, okay, wondering like, what are we going to have to do as Wayne and Wanda? And all we were was just together in the background in a giant group scene. But
wow,
everybody was so lovely and nice and supportive of each other and fun. And another weird thing was we were all crammed into this office looking through horizontal blinds at, I think, Kermit and the pig that wasn't Piggy having a fight or something like that.
Denise.
Oh yeah, right. Okay. I remember
we were
Denise.
eavesdropping, and they wanted the shot to be that when they pan over, you can see us all looking through the horizontal blinds.
Mm-hmm.
And but because it's panning away and then panning to us, and it's kind of a long scene, not everybody was going to be able to check their eye line before the scene started. So we were all kind of like, because they wanted to see our eyes through these tiny little cracks. And I remember everyone was kind of like, well, what do we, and Dave Goltz just goes, everyone put your puppets up and give us the camera, let us see. So we all lined our puppets up with our eyes, thinking he's got this great solution. And he's like, okay, now just remember where your hand was. But it was like, what? Like, who has the muscle memory to just remember the exact height their hand was? But he did it. He nailed it. It was just like, phew, and his eyes were looking right through. So remember that.
Nice, nice. So you also puppeteered on the Disney Plus special, Muppets Haunted Mansion. What was working on that like?
I just did the tiniest thing on that. In fact, it's possible that I didn't work on that. I think I worked on it. Yes, I did work on that because I think in my credits, it also says I worked on the new one and I didn't work on that one.
Oh, interesting.
On Muppets Haunted Mansion, they were filming that on what is that thing called? Do you know that sort of it's like live green screen where it's a video projector that's in like a U shape, and they were doing that, which was kind of, does anyone know what I'm talking about? You all look confused.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I
Not
know.
at least that anyway.
So it's basically like you're inside of a screen and the screen is projecting your background. So it's not like you're in a green screen, you're in a set, but it's a virtual set.
Oh, okay. I think I might know what you're talking about, but I just
Yeah.
can't think of the actual
It
name.
has a name. I can't
right
remember
now.
what it is, but that was really cool. And just like other sort of fun, sort of dumb puppet stuff is like coming from an improv background, you're really respectful of whatever's going on. Like you're sort of trained to not try to pull focus or derail what's happening. You're trying to yes and what's happening and make sure the focus goes to where the focus goes to. And so I was like a chicken crossing through or something like that. Like just, or somebody dressed like a cactus. I can't remember what my costume was, but it was a Halloween party scene. And I was just trying to be as normal as I could be. Like I'm just background. And Bill was like, Colleen, have fun. Like go to town. Like, cause I think the Muppets idea is it's like always be upstaging or something like that. Is like that even when you're in the background, you're still like this huge life and you're being this mess versus the sort of more theatrical thing is like, don't pull focus. Don't try to get any attention on you. You're just a background actor. So that was funny. Just a completely different philosophy.
Interesting.
Interesting. So you worked on the very short-lived Nickelodeon series, The Barbarian and the Troll. Still, man, I only got one season. What was it? What was it like working on that?
It was amazing. That's the first time I've been like a lead character on anything. So I mean, I've been one of the leads, but that was the first time where I was in basically every scene, and it was a lot. And Drew Mathieu I'd worked with for years, so I knew what I was
Oh
gonna do.
yeah, Drew. Oh, he's great. He's so talented. I mean, for what he did for that show, it's just so great.
So talented. And but then I got
really
to I got to become really good friends with Mike Mitchell, who was the co-creator of the show and directed the first 5 episodes. So it was a really lovely experience because I got a lot closer with puppeteers and with Mike, but I also had once again, an enormous puppet, a very long, enormous puppet. And I was so mad at everyone else because everyone else had a smaller, easier puppet. And I had this giant, long, just like this the whole time.
Oh.
And we shot a sizzle to sell it, to pitch it to Nickelodeon. And Alice Deneen,
Alice.
Yeah, the goddess of
another
puppetry.
one for name too.
She was the puppet captain on that. And I remember we were walking in the woods and trying to go somewhere. And I was just like, I can't get my head out of the shot. I can't do it. And Alice is like, yes, you can. And just bended my body in a way that for her is just completely instinctual. You just have to do this, Colleen. Like, it's just like you have to lunge, you have to walk and lunge with your whole torso bent to the side, and then you can't do it, which was because she didn't come with us to Canada, that her voice was in my brain the whole time because we shot it in Vancouver during COVID. Whenever I couldn't do something, I was like, well, Alice said I could, so I just have to figure out how to do this. And the plan had been, if we were going to shoot it really quickly, was that Alice was going to do most of the stunts because she's such a brilliant puppeteer. She was going to be kind of Brendar's stunt double. And so when she didn't come, I was like, I guess I'm doing it. And so it was this really huge learning experience for me. Me and Nicolette Santino, she was my assist for most of it, just figuring out how to sword fight and attack people with things. And Alan Trotman was our puppet captain, and he was really helpful.
Oh, Alan, yeah.
But sometimes
Great too.
it was just the two of us, like, okay, I guess this is how we flip out of this giant goblet. And then it started to be exciting to think of fun, dumb stuff we could do with her and make her more dramatic. And I that's the first time I got really kind of, this is going to sound bad, I got really into puppetry.
Oh, okay.
I love it, but this was something where I was like, it became like a puzzle to solve, and a lot of cool,
Yeah, because it was kind of like new, like to you,
totally
do
new,
all
like
that. Yeah.
outdoor shoots in the freezing cold with with an axe in one hand and a sword in another. And she was almost always leading the charge, and I walk really fast, but I had to walk slow. And turning around is one of the hardest things to do with a puppet, because all of a sudden you're turning and you're looking at monitors to know what you're doing. So you're moving and trying to find, and you're also trying to stay straight with this big long puppet. And she was constantly turning around because she's always in the front. So learning just how to do that quickly. And yeah, it was a really cool, interesting experience. Every single day I learned something new about something. It was a really lovely experience.
Nice. Nice. So you've also worked with the Jim Henson Company on a number of projects, as we mentioned, including the fusion talk show No You Shut Up. Can you kind of talk a bit about that?
No You Shut Up is well, first of all, I got to meet Paul, which is like the greatest thing on the planet. Like, what a lovely person. I think every puppet show should have Paul in it. I've never seen any like human more natural with puppets than Paul. I know everyone loves like Michael Caine in A Christmas Carol. I think it's Michael Caine in A Christmas Carol, and then it's Paul. Like, he's so good with us. And that show started just us like screaming at each other all the time. It would just be like playing these terrible people with terrible opinions. And then it was like, and then you guys, you go back and forth, and then it just gets, you have to build to this thing where then everyone tells each other to shut up. And like, that was just the template of the show. And that was another show where like learning how to lean on a counter was great. And it was shot at Univision, which is this enormous, giant building, kind of near the airport in LA. And so none of us lived close by. So it was always like getting up in the morning and driving like an hour and a half to shoot it in like the basement of this enormous news building. And we had almost no space. It was such a tiny set, and we just like sit in this hallway. But it was so fun because it was so, the first couple of seasons, it was mostly improvised, and then it started to get more written, and we had more sketches and stuff. But it was just really fun because we just got to play these terrible people with horrible opinions about the world and just be monsters to each other. And then it was really fun too, because when we had guests, I think everyone just sort of assumes when you're talking to a puppet that a puppet's going to be nice to you. And so, and they didn't really meet us. So they would come in and we'd already be sitting under the table, and they'd get in there and then start talking. And then all of a sudden this squirrel is saying really racist stuff to them. And it was always fun to do. If you haven't seen it, there's a supercut of my character. And a lot of that stuff is, I would not say now, but at the time.
Right, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
because you can't say it like in this time now when you can like something like that
Right.
back then, but it's just like
There's a lot of
kind of like Sesame Street in a way where
Yeah.
we can have all that humor back then because it was such a different time, but now Sesame is now it's all different, which it makes all sense for this generation.
Of
It's kind of
course.
all that happens.
Right.
Yeah, there's stuff where I was like, I could have been smarter. Like you could tell I'm tired, and I'm just like, I'll just say this joke, and I hear it, and I go, you could have been cleverer. Like you could have, because I think you can. I think even Paul said it. He's like, I think you can make fun of anything. You just have to do it the right way. And there's times where I watch it where I go, I don't know, I did it in the right way. But it was really so much fun, and I got to meet a bunch of really incredible comedians, and I think that's the longest a show's ever got. Like we had 4 seasons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but yeah, it was delightful.
Nice.
That's wonderful. So you also worked on the Brian Henson film, The Happy Time Murders, as well. Very interesting movie. Could you kind of talk about your work on that?
Yeah, because you got to puppeteer in that and act on screen, right? In that movie?
Yeah, that was so I know Melissa McCarthy from before. So she was the person who's like, let's put Colleen in this scene, which was really fun. And then she told me I had red pubes coming out of my shorts. Did that make it into the cut, or is that one of the ones that
I don't
didn't?
know.
I don't know.
It's been a while since I've seen the movie. I'd have to look back.
Post-production, enter that.
Yeah, right.
But that was a really fun that was an interesting experience for me because the first day of shooting, I think, was on my birthday, and I was playing the Dalmatian dominatrix.
Oh my
Oh, wow.
gosh!
So
Wow.
I'm just
What a
screaming.
birthday gift!
Yeah, what a birthday gift. I was just screaming into this man's face as this evil German Dalmatian dominatrix. It was incredible just to be like, hi, everybody. Okay, let me do this. And then but it was an interesting shoot because Kevin Clash was our puppet captain.
Man,
Kevin
he
had never
really is.
worked with me before. He had seen me
Yeah.
perform and thought I was funny and all that kind of stuff. So there were a lot of times where my favorite story to tell from this is it's a scene where the bunny is getting caught shoplift, or the bunny's in the porn shop, and the
Okay, yeah.
murderer comes in with a gun, and the bunny goes like, oh, and poops 2 eggs and pees glitter pea, right, out of fear.
Okay.
So Kevin has 2 of the puppeteers doing that, and me and another puppeteer just sitting there like waiting. And they call those, because he's on the B unit, and they call those 2 puppeteers away to the A unit, and they need them. And me and the other puppeteer were like, oh, okay, we can take over, we can help. And Kevin's like, that's fine. It's fine, we got it, or whatever. And then that the A unit was done, and those 2 puppeteers came back, and Kevin started up again. And I was like, I watched what they were doing, and all they were doing was holding eggs in their hand and dropping them. Like that was it. And I was like, Kevin, you don't trust me to hold an egg in my hand. I was like, you don't want me to have something in my hand and let it go. Like you don't think and it's just he's such a perfectionist that he just needed it done in this very specific way, and he didn't know me well enough to do it. But that was another like super learning experience of just being shoved in the strangest holes, and like making a puppet breathe with a broomstick under a stage and just going like this. And I wanted to do this behind the scenes thing just as like a present, like a wrap gift present to Brian, where like, oh, we'll get the song Candy and we'll just film some behind the scenes stuff. So we did that with the electronic press kit people, like they were into it. So we rigged that up and we did that in secret. And at the wrap party, I was like, Brian, we went behind your back and we filmed this, and it was this fun thing. And then it made it into the credits. So I was like, oh.
Oh, that's awesome. Kevin's just a wonderful God,
Yeah,
for what he's done over the years in the puppetry biz. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah, I know he's done
just
a lot.
Elmo, but like oh gosh, dinosaurs and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and all
Labyrinth.
those shows
Labyrinth,
he's done.
yeah, so many
Labyrinth,
Oh
things.
yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, he's the best. Such a great film. Now, since you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier in our introduction, you're also a puppeteer on the short-lived Netflix series, The Curious Creations of Christine McConnell. Can you talk a bit about that?
That one was another, I guess like all my stories involve me having the heaviest puppet in the room, but I guess Morgana had to wear the wolf suit, so she definitely had it worse than everybody. But that was that one was so fun because I got to be Rose and I got to be Evelyn, so I was on camera as me, and sometimes I had to puppeteer with myself, which
Oh,
was
really?
yeah, so I would be me and Tim Legassi would do Rose, which is
Yeah.
also because I'm getting out of order. So Rose was this weirdly heavy puppet, but all the weight was on my thumb. So if you watch Rose, you know how her mouth goes kind of to the side.
Mhm.
It's because somehow, however she was designed, all the body weight would just end up on my thumb. And
Oh, wow.
I was
Hmm.
those sets weren't built up, so it was always on this like rolly cart. And Tim Legassi was such a lovely,
Oh,
Yeah.
Tim! Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, another great
yeah,
person. Whenever you mention like the names that you worked on that we know, I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
there's so many wonderful people in
yeah,
biz. Like
I
it's
get to work with so
so
many great
awesome.
people. But he was such a great puppet captain because he would just go in and kind of figure it out. Like he'd go, okay, Colleen, they want you to do this. I got on the cart and I figured out how to do it. So it was really great because it was always kind of it's sort of a small set and dense, and Rose would have to move around and those carts are a little awkward. So to have somebody with that much experience kind of figure it out for me was always really lovely. And she was such a like a nuts character. And Christine McConnell who's a friend of mine now, was just she was so like lovely and inspiring. Like she basically didn't sleep that entire time because she was like doing the show and then going back to her Airbnb, her tiny Airbnb, and making like chocolate teacups so that we had them for the next episode, or baking things. She was so like a crazy workaholic. So I couldn't really complain when I had to switch from Evelyn to Rose. But if you watch the shots where I'm and Evelyn, the human character, talking to Rose, you can see because Tim's a much more energetic puppeteer than I am. I'm a very like, hey, I like a light lip flap, almost like no lip flap. And Rose's has way more energy and focus when Tim's doing her. And I never give other people puppeteers notes about how to do my characters because I'm not that particular. But I think I was
Right.
like, you gotta lower the energy. You have a lot of energy, and Rose doesn't have that much energy. But that one was really fun. We shot that kind of on a shoestring budget on the lot in that soundstage, and it was so crammed in. Everything was really tight in there. But it was, and I met a lot of really talented people on that, like Darcy Prevost. Is that how you say Darcy's last name? She was a set designer, and she did Muppets Haunted Mansion, and she did the most recent one, the
Muppets
I'm
Mayhem.
Best Mayhem.
yeah,
Yeah.
and she
Oh,
did
I love
Earth
that
Ned.
series too.
So won an
Yeah,
Emmy for one
Brittany.
of those. So yeah,
Oh,
so I
nice.
got to her doing that. And Dominique Martinez, I think is her last name, was the DP for all of those, or
Hmm.
she was at least the DP for Earth to Net and for Christine McConnell, and just makes everything so beautiful. So that was really, really fun to do.
Yes, and speaking of Earth to Ned, what was that show like for you? What was doing that like?
Uh, I look at everything's like a first for me. That one was really weird because so we had this set and you had Ned inside the set, like built into the set. And Morgana, the same actress who did Edgar's suit, was inside Ned. And then Donna was the two front hands, and then Raymond and I think Jack Venturo, and then different people rotated in and out, but I think those were the sort of set hands. We're doing the hands, and then Paul Rugg was the voice, and then Alan Troutman was the like ear flaps and eyebrows and other facial mechs. So it was 6 people on one puppet.
Wow.
And then,
which is basically unheard of in a
Yeah,
sense.
Oh
like-
yeah.
it was nuts. And it was almost, I would say 50% improvised. We had scripted stuff, but then all the interviews were improvised. So you had 6 people basically like improvising. And they like, it's crazy because they're all listening to each other and listening to Paul and watching and creating this character that all comes together. It was so cool. But the other funny thing was like they're in that pit, and then we were off stage in the dark and, you know, on the side of stage. So we couldn't really, I mean, we could kind of see each other, but we couldn't really see each other. So we're only listening through comms and stuff. So it was just really, really cool. And then Michael Ostrom was doing Cornelius, and Nikki was,
Michael, yeah, he's awesome too.
and Nikki's assisting him, and then Drew's doing the eyes. So same thing, like 3 people from completely opposite sides of the stage are doing it. And then I just had Betty, and Betty was HDPS, which is Henson Digital Puppetry System.
Yeah.
And going in, I had done HDPS maybe one time, and I was like, oh yeah, it's, you know, it's just puppetry through this glove. And they gave us about 2 weeks to maybe 4 weeks to learn. And I think it was like 2 weeks to get to know each other, to learn, like get to know the characters while they were building the puppets and stuff. And we were in the creature shop in Burbank doing it. And I put my hand in and I was like, yeah. And Drew was teaching me how to do it, Drew Massey. And he was like, oh, no, Colleen, there's more stuff you have to do. So you go like this in this digital glove, basically, or this, you know, metal glove to make the mouth move. But if you want to make it make an E sound, then you can program it like, oh, you turn the mouth that way so that the digital mouth goes like that. And then if you want it to make an O sound or O shape, you go like that to make it go O. And then if you want it to go F, you can rig it that your pinky does that. And if you want it to go like, you have to pop your B's and your P's. So all of a sudden I went from like, oh, I know how to lip sync to now I have to learn how to play like a musical instrument in 2 weeks. And it was crazy. I was like, okay, like I know what I'm saying kind of doesn't make any sense, but I'm assuming somebody has explained this before on this podcast. Have they?
Oh yeah.
I think so, yeah.
But it was like, it was crazy. All of a sudden I was like, oh no. And then when we were on set, because of the delay, like from them shooting it and getting to me to see it, it was like a 1 second delay, which is a big delay.
Yeah.
In puppetry.
No, yeah.
So I like flapping this thing and I'm pushing this foot pedals to get her to come in and out. And I've got this gear shift that's like arranging her head, and she had to keep popping up and talking, and she'd have to like pop in, but she was like this bus that I'd have to like drive in to get her to talk. So I basically every day I was having a nervous breakdown.
It's interesting you mentioned delay. A lot of the Sesame like people we've had on, we've talked to them about like doing the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and things like that.
Yeah.
And they talk about how like when they hold up their puppets, there's always this like huge like couple second delay.
It's, you don't think about it. I remember when I first started puppeteering and people were talking about delays, and I was like, what are they talking about? Like Brian would always like clap to see like, oh, the sound versus when he saw it. And that was the first time where I was like, oh no, like, okay, now I've got to figure out how to compensate for this. Because you know that if you're matching to your mouth, that the delay won't exist when they actually air it. But what you're looking at it and then you're going, oh no, I'm doing this wrong. So then you're correcting. So you kind of have to look, but not look. It's like a weird thing. And by the end, I figured it out. But that was funny because then it was the end. So when I watch it, I'm like, okay. And sometimes I would just kind of keep the mouth kind of swimming. So it was like, all right, if I don't hit all my consonants shapes, that's fine, because she's just kind of a mush mouth now. Like she's just kind of moves her mouth around a lot. And then that way you can't tell that she's not making the appropriate lip shapes. And that was one where in the beginning, because I was panicking so much, one of the tech guys made me a helmet thing that I could put on my head so that if I moved my head, it would move her head. And that saved my life in the beginning, because he put it on a hat so that like while I was really focusing on this, it was still kind of keeping her alive, because I would instinctually just move my head where I needed it to move. And I felt like I had figured it out when I stopped using the hat. I was like, oh my God, I can do it with the joystick.
Yeah, it's that's just really interesting. You had mentioned Donna earlier. When we had her on, we also talked about Earth to Ned. Ned's desk was the pit, and started calling it the glitter pit. Everybody else was referred to as the glitter pitters, because for those who don't know, for those who really haven't seen it, Ned's costume, it's like an old Elvis costume, but it also rained this super fine gold glitter, and they were covered in it for months. They would find glitter in places they didn't even know they had. But it was crazy for them.
Every once in a
All
while,
that glitter.
I know I'd have to go into that pit, because
Did you?
what were they called? The alien creatures that had been cloned. I can't remember their names, but they every once in a while we'd all get shoved in there because they would need to be there for something, and it was just like it was not a big area, and you got like the 4 or the 3 of them that are normally in there, and then shoving more of us in there, and we're all just like this trying to get those things to do stuff. And you'd come out covered in just like light glitter from the fabric.
Wow.
Oh, that's great. So now on stage, you perform with the Henson alternative show, Puppet Up Uncensored. What is that like?
I mean, it's my favorite thing to do. Like I'm an improviser. That's probably my favorite art form. I love, 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 love to improvise. And that's how I started with this place. It's the thing that I probably do most consistently. Like I said, we started as improvisers and we were taught how to puppeteer. And it's the way I tell this to people who are trying to learn, especially if you come from like an improv background, is in the beginning, I was really focused on puppetry and my improv was really starting to go down. And I'm like, you've been brought here because you're an improviser and you're not being funny in class because you're trying so hard to puppeteer. So at some point, the classes were divided up. The puppeteers would go learn improv and the improvisers would learn puppetry for the first half. And then after break, we'd come together and do stuff. So during the first half, when we were just learning puppetry, I would just focus on the puppetry and I wouldn't care about being funny. And then in the second half, I would just focus on being funny. And the way I survived was I would just lock my arm to my head. I would just be like, up is your head. Like, because it's reverse. So when you're on it, you get confused and you panic and then you ruin everything. And then you're like, ugh. And I was like, but your body smarts know where your head is. So instead of trying to remember left or right or whatever, just know head is correct. So I would just do that. And I would stand at the edge of stage like this and just kind of plant myself and talk. And then I was good at lip sync pretty much right away. But everything else took a while. Like I focused and everything like that. So that's my tip for you when you're starting out. If like learn all your things, practice everything, learn walking or whatever. But if someone thrusts you in a performance, when in doubt, just keep your arm close to your head. And then when we started doing shows, it was so much fun. And when I first started, I wasn't allowed anywhere near anything complicated choreography wise or dancing or any kind of puppet recreation of anything. It was like Colleen's in the improvs and and everybody, all the puppeteers do everything else. And then now, I'm doing like business on stage. And I still think of myself as an improviser. So I had to do business, which is an old Jim Henson routine that we've been doing in the show, like a recreation. And they were like, oh, Colleen, in this show, you're going to do one of the business guys. And I had that initial instinct of like, what? I can't. And then I was like, yes, you can. You can do this. Just like watch the video, learn it. You can put your hand in a thing and click a little light that lights up a thing. And you can remember this. Like, I just have to remind myself that I'm a puppeteer now, and I've been doing it for like 17 years. But in my mind, I've only been doing it for like 2 years. And everyone else has been doing it for like 20 years.
Yeah, Puppet Up's awesome.
It's really, really fun. Yeah, and it's like I love doing them in LA. The audiences are so lovely, and just I mostly get to say some of the darkest, worst things in the world through like the fluffy characters.
So you co-founded GLOP, the Glorious Ladies of Puppetry, which Donna Kimball also mentioned in her episode. Could you kind of talk about how that came to be and the work that GLOP does?
So Donna called me during COVID. We were all locked up and said that she had this. She's been joking with friends about the Glorious Ladies of Puppetry for years, and she wanted us to do something. And did I want to write something? And I was like, okay. And she's like, maybe something we could shoot from green screen from our homes. And so I wrote down a bunch of ideas, and I just looked around my apartment and I was like, what could I film here? Like based on the things I have access to, like backgrounds and stuff. And I met with her and Alice Deneen and pitched them the ideas, and they were like, well, we kind of like all of them. So why don't we set it up like, because I said, what about this like girls' school or something? And it was like, well, why don't we take the girls' school and have it that they're telling stories and it flashes to all these other things I pitched them. And so then that's what we did. And I still based everything kind of on what we could film in our apartments. Like there was art on the wall. So it's like, oh, we could do an art museum thing, or we could go to a park and film something in a park because we'd be outdoors and stuff. But then Donna and her partner, Rich, were far more technically ambitious than I was. And I was like, no, we'll shoot on green screen and we can do all this kind of stuff. So that first season everybody was separate. Some of us went to Donna's apartment because she had a separate bedroom that you could go to without getting near them. And we would shoot it there. And that was I was really proud of us, because what we would do was if we weren't there, we would direct through Zoom. So the Zoom would be set to be facing the phones so you could see what they were shooting. And then I would read with them while Donna directed. And Donna, I'm sure she talked about it, but she did storyboards with figurines so people would know. So she could figure out where people were positioned, and people could kind of know which way they should be looking so that it could all be composited together. And that was just great. And what was great about it and made us really excited for the future was we worked with people who weren't in LA. Because I'd worked with Louise on a game show a million years ago in London, and Louise Gold.
Oh yeah,
Oh, Louise.
the wonderful Louise Gold, yeah.
Absolutely.
But that was something where I was like, oh, I'll never get to work with Louise again until I go back to England. And then it was like, oh, I got to work with Louise again. I got to make her one of the main characters. And like New York puppeteers like Jen Barnhart, who I'd worked with, and we were doing Puppet Up in New York.
Yeah.
And she's the best.
And so we was like, oh yeah, we can just work with these people. This is great. And so when we came out of COVID and we could work together, a lot of people we shot with were in LA, because then I was able to write far more complicated stuff because we could do it in person, like tug of war or dodgeball or something like that, where we could really have fun with assisting each other and stuff. But we still got to keep that up of like still getting to work with Louise. We worked with Becky. What's Becky's last name? Why am I? Henderson.
Mhm.
And and Kat Smee and Helena Smee, which is actually Helena's like last name is something else, but she's married. But we just got to work with people from other places Karen Prell. Like, it was really fun to
Oh
just
wow!
Oh wow.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
That
awesome.
must have been a great honor getting to work with someone like Karen
Oh, yeah.
Prell, you know, Red
Oh,
Yeah.
Fraggle.
yeah.
I mean,
It was
Oh,
so
yeah.
cool. And it was just like, so we're really inspired with even more of that, like reaching out to people kind of around the globe and even trying different kinds of puppetry and being able to not only just do the stuff that we have here, but then being able to long distance direct people from other places and get to make bigger and better stuff. So GLOP is sort of, it has multiple hopes and dreams, but the number one thing we want to do is just encourage more women in diversity in puppetry. And so that's been really exciting because we've gotten a lot of people mostly being like, I'm so into puppetry. Like, how do I get into puppetry? Like, I like that we're a resource to encourage people to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah, the fork tag I absolutely loved. That whole thing, it was just so many. Like, it was crazy. So many different aspects of how uh fork could be interpreted. It was amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just so fun because it, like, obviously, like, social media has also made that such a like a doable thing.
Oh,
Because I
yeah.
think people still get a little stuck in the idea that there's one way to do something, like there's one way to create content, and you have to go through these channels. And it's just so exciting to be like, you can just create content and you can create this culture, your own culture, instead of trying to get into this other culture and join that club. It's like, well, let's start our own super inclusive club and make it really open and meet all these new people and have
Yeah.
will be resources for each other and encourage
I
people
love
to
that.
start.
I
Yeah.
love for what it is. I mean, for you and Donna and the rest, the creative team, is gonna create this amazing, uh, inclusive, thing, for if there are gonna be any like new like female like puppeteers want how to get started, and I'm like, hey, check out GLOP,
Yeah,
just
Yeah.
that's how great thing for
Yeah.
have, and Donna,
of
she's awesome.
course.
All of them are.
Of course. So
Oh yeah.
moving on briefly to your on-camera acting work, you got to appear in an episode of the shows The Office and How I Met Your Mother. What were those shows like?
The Office is how I got my SAG card.
Oh, okay.
Get into SAG, you have to get like either you work as like a extra on SAG stuff and you get like 3 waivers or something, or you get hired and they pay a Taft-Hartley or whatever. You get Taft-Hartley'd. So that's what The Office did. I got that part and they called and they were like, "Are you union?" I was like, "No." And they're like, "Okay, that's okay." And I was so grateful. So that's how I got on that. That was fun because we came in and we were in this room with like chairs in a circle and they were just like, "Go sit." And there was this one woman just like sitting in a chair in a suit. And that we didn't know who she was, like if she was an executive or something like that. She was just sitting there. And we're like, okay. And I went and sat down next to her. And then she got up and left. And then we were just kind of like, okay, I don't know what's going on. And then it occurred to me like, oh, she's Steve Carell's stand-in. So where I've sat is where he's going to sit. So then I was like, oh my God, he's going to sit right next to me, which I was so excited about. And I remember I turned and looked at him at some point and I just was like, oh, Steve Carell. Like I was just so excited to be next to him. And then, and it was really early in the morning. So everybody was just kind of tired and nobody really talked to each other initially. And then we did the scene a couple of times and it was just really fun and dumb. And a friend of mine was also on the show. And everybody was just really lovely. But by the time we got to lunch, we went to sit down where kind of, the random actors get to sit, and like Steve Carell just like plops down, sits and talks to us. And I was like, oh, he's also really nice. But that was really fun. And I really like The Office, but I'm not like a mega fan. And it's funny because to me, I have like 1.5 lines in an episode of The Office, like season 2. But whenever people like you were on The Office, what episode? And I'll tell them, they're like, oh, like, because they know that. I guess that's how I know, like, Cheers or Friends or something like that, or
Yeah,
Seinfeld,
yeah.
where like I know exactly what episode you were in, and I'm like, yeah. And so it's really cool to be part of something that's like really means a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah. And what about How I Met Your Mother? What was that like?
I've been auditioning to be on that show for a while. The casting directors have been trying to get me in, and I was always auditioning to be tall people, like Jason Segel's some sort of relative of Jason Segel is always why I was getting called in, because I'm 6'1". And that was supposed to be its last season, I think, and then there was one more season, but it was like, we squeaked you in, we finally got you in. And what's interesting, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's not actually shot in front of a live audience. It's shot on a soundstage like a 3-camera shoot, but there isn't a live audience. They add that in later. I think they play it in front of a live audience, and then that's where they get the laughter. But it was the most chill set. Like, we went in, we read through the scene, they shot some other stuff. I just talked to like the costume people while I waited for my thing. And then we did mine, and I think we did it like, I don't know, like 3-4 times. And then we did my other scene like 3-4 times. And then it was like, all right, you're done. Like the lady directed it, who I believe directed all the episodes or most of the episodes or something, was just so calm and like, all right, let's try this. And it was just, there was like zero drama. Everything ran like so efficiently because it was their 9th season and everybody knew what they were doing. And 3-camera shoots tend to be faster, but not always. Like live taping sometimes can take forever. But 3-camera shoots, just because they have multiple cameras going, and especially with a crew that really knows what they're doing and have worked together forever, like they just it was really lovely. Everybody was very nice, and it was very fast. Like I don't think I even got to hang out in my dressing room because they moved so quickly. Like normally you get there, they get you in hair and makeup, and then you sit in your dressing room for like 4 or 5 hours until they're ready for you. And I think they shot a scene before mine, but I think it's like I got to set, we ran it. I went to hair and makeup and got in my costume, and basically by the time that was done, and I sort of talked to costume about dumb stuff, they were like, "Okay, Colleen, we're ready for you." And then we shot my stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, that's it. Bye, guys." It was really fun.
Nice. Very nice.
Absolutely. So briefly moving to your voiceover, you voiced Principal Funny in the Cartoon Network series.
Principal Fun.
Yes.
Right. I knew the P was silent somewhere. In Pinky Malinky, could you kind of talk a bit about that?
That I think that's the first like regular character on a cartoon I'd ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And it was originally supposed to be on Nickelodeon, and then they ended up putting it on Netflix. So I think from the time I did the pilot to the time it aired was like 4 years. I'm not positive, but I think when it aired, I went back and I looked at my email for like the appointment to go do the pilot, and it was like 4 years. And I think I auditioned for something else. And then they were like, "Hey, Colleen, you have this part." And I hadn't even auditioned. I think they just gave me that part based on something else I had done. Because I did a different pilot for Nickelodeon and that didn't go. But it was a really fun thing. And it's interesting because from doing more voiceover work, and like Mike Mitchell's the guy who created Barbarian the Troll, just directed Kung Fu Panda 4. So talking to him about directing voiceover actors and stuff like that, like one of the big things that actors get embarrassed about is noises. And I remember watching, I think there's that famous Hugh Jackman thing, where he's like doing ADR for Wolverine or something like that, and he's in a room by himself going like, like all that kind of stuff. And I watched that video and I was so like, oh God, like mortified. And then when I went in to play Principal Fun, because she's another thing that destroyed my voice, she's always growling and grumbling, and she's constantly having to like knock things off her desk or kick things or karate chop. She's just constantly grunting and making noises. And I thought I would be embarrassed to do it, and I was completely into it. It just like and like trying to make all these weird noises and like the difference between this karate chop and that karate chop, and just these weird like noises versus this noise. So that was really fun, and I'm grateful that I got to do that, because then later doing like Brendar, where I had to do all these like hacking noises and stuff, I had gotten myself ready and built up, and I'd learned and trained.
So as we're getting close to our wrapping up, can you share any projects that you're currently working on? At least are you allowed to talk about?
What am I working on? So I've developed 2 different cartoon TV shows with Mike Mitchell. We sold one to Fox a year before last. It didn't go, but we're working on a new thing and pitching that. If you live in LA, I'm doing a show. It's called Colleen Smith's Hutch of Horrors. And
Nice.
it's at Dynasty Typewriter, October 29th. So it's a Halloween Halloweenish show. And it's I host this scary sketch show that I wrote all this.
Awesome.
So there'll be lots of fake blood and terrible things, stuff like that. What else am I doing? We're always working on more GLOP stuff. I'm going to Kuwait at the end of September.
Oh, nice.
End
Wow.
of September to perform for the troops. So
that's wonderful.
yeah.
Nice. That's great.
And then another fun possible cartoony puppet related thing that I can't talk about, but I'm working on it. So
nice.
If it goes, then it'll be very exciting.
Right.
Nice. Looking forward for more down the line.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the last question that Jake's about to ask is a question we ask all of our guests at the end. Go ahead, Jake.
Thank you, Chris. So, of course, this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of? In your own words, how would you define the word nostalgia?
Oh, I think it's that like warm feeling from your past. Like it's all the good stuff from before. And I guess it's all the stuff that you sort of wish for that you could get back to. For me, it's that, you know how Stranger Things has that 80s haze to it?
Right. I love that series.
It's that haze. It's that whenever I watch things and I think some of it is just like the film aged. Like I don't know that it looked like that when I was a kid in the 80s, but there's just this like my sister and I have been watching a lot of Murder, She Wrote, and that to me, like you're just in New England solving crimes, like old Columbos. I love a Stephen King book, like an 80s or the It series.
Okay.
So to me, I love it that most of the stuff is like murder and death, but I think of nostalgia as like the past with like sort of a haze over it. So you forget all the bad stuff, and it's just that feeling you had, which I mean, we will all be nostalgic for this time too. Obviously, like the future makes you remember the past differently. But I think there's definitely something when you were young and you could kind of enjoy things differently than you do now. Like now I have money, and if I want to eat chocolate, I can just buy chocolate. But when I was a kid, I couldn't. I was dependent on my parents. So chocolate, the way I felt about chocolate then versus the way I feel about chocolate now is very different. So I think it's that. It's like the stuff that was so exciting and it was always a surprise and you had no control over. So is that a good definition?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, Colleen, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was a blast.
Thanks so much for having me. I hope I didn't say weird information about my
No,
not at all.
No worries at all. And thank you so much for being on, and keep up with great work of what you're doing now. Can we what's next in store?
All right, thanks you guys.
Yes, enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Take
Bye,
care,
Colleen.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from us as well. We absolutely enjoyed our time speaking with the wonderful Colleen Smith. Links to her social media and links to GLOP's website and social media will be in the description down below.
And her own website too.
And her website and social media as well, so you can connect with her. or check out her work or GLOP's work. But it's goodbye from us as well. Keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews coming your way. As always, what do you say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode. Be sure to follow Jake and the Happy Nostalgia team on social media, check out our website, and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.